Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be with you tonight. Well, you mentioned a feud. I am a peaceful man, but let me just say that everything that you've heard from John in terms of the statistical claims are subject to serious challenge and refutation. Quickly on the D.C. Handgun ban issue, keep in mind that it was a D.C. handgun ban. You could still have a shotgun in your home, so if you needed to be protected in your home. The only thing that they were trying to take away was handguns, because those are the guns most preferred by criminals. But if you look at the numbers that John had put up, which was interesting, if he had actually showed you the number of murders in D.C., they had actually dropped. He showed you the rate. And what was interesting about that was D.C. was depopulating tremendously in the 70s, and it was largely the flight of the affluent, so the group that had the lowest likelihood of engaging in crime. So crime was going to be, if you use the rates that John showed, it was going to be trending up because the people remaining in the city had a much higher risk of crime. And so when you make those adjustments, the conclusions are opposite to what John suggested. If you went for a number of years, you'd see there was a huge run-up in crime in D.C., as there was in Chicago and Philadelphia and New York, for that matter. But it had nothing to do with the topic we're talking about. That was crack cocaine, which had a tremendous criminogenic influence on crime. The final thing to mention about D.C. handgun ban is, whatever it says about that particular experience, remember D.C. is right across from Virginia, where there are plenty of guns. So the story that John tries to tell you may tell you something about gun control in that urban environment, but it's not a story about the value of guns. Everyone concedes that guns in the hands of the right person at the right time can reduce crime. That's why, as we've heard, armed police and security guards are a good thing. If you go to a maximum security prison, the prison guards don't have guns, because there are times when guns are good and there are times when guns are bad. Prison guards, you might think, would want to have guns, but they know those guns would be taken away in a heartbeat by the criminals who are behind bars, so therefore you don't see it. If you could expand the population in a cautious way to those who are unquestionably law-abiding and a cautious population, sure, there can be benefits there. But the idea that John Lott, and you will hear Gary Kleck argue that guns are being used constantly to thwart criminals by these gun-toting citizens is grotesquely misleading. John gave a number, 2 million. Gary Kleck has at times said there are 2.5 million defensive uses of handguns each year. It's a complete fantasy. Because gun ownership is so prevalent in this country, criminals know that all they have to do is wait for the family to leave and go to work or to school. Then they can just walk in and grab the guns, and that happens 500,000 to 1 million times per year. So by virtue of our prevalence of guns, we are giving great aid and comfort to the criminal population, because they can walk in, take those guns. There was a wonderful 60 Minutes documentary a number of years ago designed to show you how you could protect your house from a burglar, and they had an active burglar showing how quickly he could get in the house. And when he got in, Mike Wallace asked him, well, what's the first thing you do when you get in the house? And he said, look for the guns. They're gold to criminals, and that's why they go and get them. So whatever benefit we get from scaring off or even shooting a small number of criminals, it's offset by the fact that 5 times as many times a gun will be handed over to a criminal, in effect, because the criminals will be taking that gun from the previously law-abiding citizen. Now, John and I have debated on the issue of right-to-carry laws, laws that say citizens who have not yet been convicted of a felony or not yet been involuntarily committed to a mental hospital should be allowed to carry a gun wherever they want. John thinks this is a great idea, offers statistics to prove it. Let me just mention that in Texas, even if you have been committed to a mental hospital, if you can get a note from your doctor, they'll give you that concealed handgun permit. North Dakota really set a new low. They actually gave one of these permits to a blind permit holder. This is, to be frank, insanity. Now, I published a number of econometric studies, and virtually every top econometrician who has looked at this has sided with me and not with John Lott. The National Academy of Sciences convened a panel of talented experts who spent 2 years looking at John Lott's work, Gary Kleck's work. They came before the committee, testified 15-1 in that panel of 16. They concluded that scientific evidence does not support the more guns, less crime proposition. The lone dissenter was someone who was not an econometrician, who admitted in his dissent that he wished he knew more econometrics, and who had previously testified as an expert witness on behalf of the execrable NRA. The other 15 members of the committee responded to his dissent saying, quote, "The scientific evidence does not support his position." Let me just note what the NRA tries to tell you about all sorts of things. This is a picture of something that you can buy on the NRA website. It's a picture showing the Second Amendment. And note the way they drape the gun across the page. It's obscuring the first half of the Second Amendment, which starts off saying a well-regulated militia. That's because they would try to have you believe that was not part of the Constitution, the idea of regulation being very central because it's the first phrase in the constitutional amendment that they're talking about. Now, if the NRA can't be trusted to tell you the truth on something that's been on black and white paper for 200 years, how likely is it that they're going to be able to tell you the truth on the complicated issues of evaluating what the impact of these laws are? It's a complete absurdity to think you're going to get the true story from the NRA and their close allies. Thank you.